Tony Greenstein, a Jewish activist, has been suspended from the Green Party. Greenstein has been outspoken about the Palestinian genocide. He is a writer and was one of the founding members of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign. Incidentally, Greenstein was a Labour member before being expelled in 2018 for supposed anti-Semitism. Greenstein was a member of the Brighton local Green Party. His suspension was a local decision. This request to suspend him was made on the 11th of March, with the decision being made on the 15th of April. 11 voted for his suspension and 1 against. To make matters worse, he hadn't been given a specific reason or told that the decision was made due to a specific incident. Instead, he was given a vague response. Basis of the decision documented a history of anti-Semitism, including court decisions and recent terrorism charges. The terrorism charges stem from his 9-month suspended prison sentence for attacking Elbit Systems with Palestine Action back in September 2023. This is what Tony Greenstein has said in response to the suspension. As you may or may not know, genuine anti-Semites have never had a problem with anti-Semitism. For 2 years running, Amichai Chikli has organised a conference on fighting anti-Semitism. And who did he invite? The world's anti-Semites. Anyone who has any knowledge of Zionist history knows that Zionism was greeted when it first emerged as a form of Jewish anti-Semitism by most Jews. The anti-Semites wanted us out of their countries, and Zionism agreed. The breach of all human rights of the Palestinians is so egregious, with the latest being the reinstatement into the army of rapists and the routine use of torture against Palestinian prisoners, that anti-Semitism, quote unquote, doesn't wash any longer. Accusing anti-racists of anti-Semitism means that genuine Jew haters are given cover. When Greenstein was expelled from the Labour Party, this happened under Jeremy Corbyn. This mirrors with today. The Green Party have elected their most aggressive critic of Israel, Zach Polansky, yet the structures within it still allow the same kind of witch hunts that happened under Labour. Zach has been outspoken on the weaponisation of anti-Semitism many times as a leader, which he himself has been subjected to anti-Semitism for standing in solidarity with the Palestinian people. The Greens are facing the pressures of anti-Semitism weaponisation, as did Jeremy Corbyn when he was Labour leader. Speaking of Labour, Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government, Steve Reed, spoke to Huffington Post, calling on Zach Polansky to root out anti-Semitism.
We kicked them out, and they've been able to walk into the Green Party with no one checking their backgrounds. Now, a lot of those people are not only in the Green Party, they have been selected to stand as candidates in these local elections. And Zach Polansky hasn't got a clue who they are because he didn't bother to do the work in advance. He's been very open with that with the public. They don't have a vetting procedure that is up to scratch. They didn't bother to check these people's backgrounds. And they're now putting them up for election in a few weeks' time up and down the country. And the public have no idea that these people who they think are, soft, fluffy Green Party supporters are actually racists and anti-Semites.
The claim that Labour has dealt with anti-Semitism has been founded on no evidence. Quite the contrary. Under Starmer, Labour has purged many Jewish people. Jewish members of the UK's Labour Party are almost 13 times more likely to be expelled for supporting prescribed left-wing groups than non-Jewish members. Jewish Voice for Labour, otherwise known as JVL, also said that Jewish members of the party are 6 times more likely to come under investigation for anti-Semitism than non-Jews. So maybe they should look inward before attacking other parties. Curtis, does this worry you? And are we going to see a replication of what happened under Corbyn's Labour?
I think a lot of people may respond to this and be turned off the Greens. I want to stress that's not a good idea. There are some similarities, of course, with Labour. There's also major differences. The similarity is there is obviously witch hunting going on. Tony Greenstein is a prolific pro-Palestine campaigner. He's Jewish himself. And the reason why he was suspended was over something very vague. It didn't say, this is a particular thing you have done. This is a particular quote you said. In fact, he was a member for like 5 days. But it was a spurious sort of, well, you have terrorism charges and you're just anti-Semitic. Of course, the terrorism charges was standing with Palestine Action and destroying Elbit Systems, the same systems that is arming Israel that's committing a genocide. I think that is a terrorism, not destroying, weapons and weapons companies. Now, the local party did this. I mean, this is nothing to do with Zach Polansky. Same with Jeremy Corbyn, of course. I mean, Jeremy Corbyn didn't handpick certain people. Well, to be fair, he did. When you read the reports, he was pressurized to, I think, with like Ken Livingstone, for example, but he was a high-profile figure. But this isn't Zaplancy going in and choosing people to kick out. So I want to stress that it's not a good idea to then go, screw the Greens then, because materially, the Greens will have a better policy than Labour will ever have. I mean, once again, the Labour Party was the most pro-Palestine it had ever been under Jeremy Corbyn. But what underpins that is the most horrific Zionist MPs who would have stopped Jeremy Corbyn. I mean, they did stop him, right? Had he won an election, there is no way he would have been able to implement some of the anti-Israel policies we wanted for him to do. Whereas the Greens, well, they're a democratic party. The majority of people inside the party absolutely stand with Palestine. There was a recent Zionism is racism motion, bit of a kerfuffle going on in there, a lot of tech issues actually. We're kind of used to that. But obviously, when it gets to the main conference, that's going to pass most likely. People support Palestine in the Greens. There is a small amount of people, of course, small amount of pro-Israel and Zionist people in the Greens, like every single political party. That just happens. It also wasn't a national decision to get rid of Tony Greenstein. It was 11 people at a local meeting who kind of waited for, well, as soon as he announced he joined the party, they just went for him. So it does tell me that there's still issues with structure, which is ironic, actually, because Steve Reed's saying, well, Zach Polanski hasn't bothered to do the vetting process and is letting any crank in and any racist in. Well, actually, what we're seeing is someone being kicked out for no good reason. Like, they're kicking people out easier than what you would say is letting people in. So it's just crazy to say. Also, Steve Reed, Morgan McSweeney's guy, has nothing to say about anti-Semitism when it comes to Labour. As you helpfully pointed out, Jewish Voice for Liberation said that basically, if you're Jewish, you're more likely to be kicked out of the Labour Party if you're anti-Zionist. Again, it's the right kind of Jew. Whereas there isn't a nationwide problem with the Greens. Having said that, we obviously need to be very cautious because we cannot allow this to happen again. I think the left has made leaps and bounds in Palestine solidarity. You're seeing week in, week out, thousands of people, if not hundreds of thousands of people, are standing out or standing or marching in support of Palestine. That's all being done by left-wing groups and organizations. The Greens, again, are probably going to pass a Zionism is racism motion, the most radical kind of proposal any political party has ever done when it comes to standing with Palestine. And again, the Green Party policy is to absolutely stop sending weapons to Israel and stop sending funds to them as too. So I think materially, policy, it's still far better than the Labour Party. It's not a reason to leave the Greens or be, or shun them away. Doesn't mean you should be skeptical, because no matter which political party, whether the left are in it or not, there is going to be Zionist influence. That's going to happen. The real test we want to see is, will the Greens capitulate? This is a potential taster of maybe them capitulating, and they cannot do that. I know I think there's a temptation to do so, because it's like, oh, we're so close. We're rising in the polls. Now we need to moderate ourselves because we don't want to put off people. I get the temptation, but as we've seen under Jeremy Corbyn, he had that same temptation. But those on the other side, i.e. Zionists, will never accept a middle ground. Every single time Jeremy Corbyn capitulated just a little bit, you didn't have people like Margaret Hodge go, okay, that's fine now. She was like, no, you need to do this, you need to do that. You basically need to be full on pro-Israel. So that's where capitulation gets you. And that is my worry. That happens. But I do think it is different insofar that Labour is a anti-democratic party, extremely anti-democratic. Jeremy Corbyn didn't bring in the democratic measures, which he needed to, especially mandatory reselection. That was something that I think was crucial to the Corbyn movement and the project, and the reason why it failed, because we couldn't kick out MPs who were just horrendous, not just on Israel, but on everything when it comes to privatization, taking money from corporations, right? But the Greens have a mass democratic party, and I think power is with people and numbers. So I think the Greens, I don't expect the Greens to do a full-on capitulation like Labour, but we need to hold their feet to the fire. We need to keep a close eye on this, because we shouldn't be having people like Tony Greenstein, who is Jewish but also anti-Zionist, getting kicked out of a party after 5 days. It's crazy.